It's Monday, November 11th, 2024, and we've got a much quieter satellite view here today than we have maybe in some past updates. You can see Raphael is no longer with us. We've got maybe a little bit of a ghost here, some remnants of Raphael hanging out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, but it's no longer a problem for us. Even all of the blow-off moisture that has caused some rain and some storms across the eastern side of the U.S. is now going out to sea. Our next system is visible here in the west, and you guys are feeling it up there, especially in the Pacific Northwest, with some wind and some rain and some heavy snow in the higher elevations. But for the most part, things are very quiet right now. But unfortunately, we have another area of interest that we have to keep an eye on this week. Down here in the Western Caribbean, we've got a 40% probability that another area of thunderstorms is going to turn into a tropical depression, maybe even a tropical storm within the next 7 days. And I don't know how many of these things we've had down here, but this is hopefully going to be the last one. There's so much heat and there's so much energy down here that even in the middle of November and maybe even into late November, we're going to be talking about hurricanes still. So right now it's too early to talk about anything specific, but it is something that we are keeping an eye on. This group of thunderstorms is showing up on the European ensembles, and it's really not giving us any information. Right now it's saying that there's about a 40 to 50% probability of a tropical storm forming somewhere down here, and then it's either going to go this way or this way. But we're kind of in the dark right now. Of course, this is forever away, so there's no point in really trying to nail down the track right now, but I'm just trying to let you know that there's still storms popping up down here that we have to keep an eye on if we're in the Gulf Coast regions. Also, if you're in Central America or the Caribbean, this is definitely more of a real threat. At least more flash flooding is going to be possible with the heavy rain that's going to come along with these thunderstorms that's going to be responsible for creating the depression down here. You can see the formation of this storm clear as day on the latest GFS model. You can see it right in here. Got a storm maybe as early as Friday trying to come together. Maybe it's an official depression by this point. And then as we go into the future, it really doesn't strengthen much. There's so much wind shear coming off of all these big systems blowing through the United States that it's going to be hard for this thing to overcome any of that and do anything. But the GFS strengthens it right up until it makes landfall in Florida, maybe on Thursday, November 21st. Now, once again, this is way out in La La Land here. There's no way that this exact scenario is going to happen. But once again, it's just one of the possibilities, and it's something that we've got to take seriously, because anytime there's something showing on the models, especially if the National Hurricane Center is tracking it and it's tropical and it starts down here in the Caribbean, we have to watch it like a hawk, especially if we live in the Gulf. But yeah, notice all this other stuff that's happening too. It's not just the tropical system that we're keeping an eye on. We've got all of these little troughs coming through. Here's one coming through tomorrow that's actually going to cause some problems in the Texas Panhandle. How about you there in places like Pampa and Amarillo? We've got a marginal risk of severe weather tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised to see that upgraded to a slight risk. Some hail and some very strong winds are going to be possible, and maybe even an isolated tornado or two. That's all because of that little divot in the jet stream that we were just looking at. And as it moves off to the east, the area of interest is going to move off to the east. We're going to have a small chance of some strong thunderstorms around New Orleans and Biloxi on Wednesday, November 13th. So make sure you guys are keeping an eye out for that. And once again, that's all being driven by our little divot in the jet stream, which is also going to bring more snow to portions of Wyoming and Colorado here on Tuesday. But I think the main event's going to be our thunderstorms that we see in Texas. That's going to turn into a general rain event up here in the northern and more central plains on Wednesday. And then, of course, we're going to be watching those southern storms down here as well. This is going to come along with some incredible moisture values. So once again, we've got to watch out for flash flooding down here in the Delta, something that we had to deal with a lot over the past couple of days, but this is just going to add insult to injury. If you've got saturated grounds, flash flooding is going to be very possible with this next round of rain Wednesday into Thursday. Once that moves farther east, our folks over here in the mid-Atlantic, down into the southeastern United States, I really don't see much of anything happening with this for you. It's going to be a little bit cooler, and it's going to be a little bit cloudier with some intermittent rain showers as we go through the end of the week. Now, honestly, that's about it. As far as this week goes, that's all the action we've got. Okay, we've got a little storm coming through. Actually got quite a bit of rain and snow expected in the Pacific Northwest, which is typical for this time of year. But other than that, things are quite calm until we have our potential major pattern shift as we go into next week. So look at this. On Saturday, November 16th, we've got a major ridge here in the central and eastern part of the United States. This is going to bring about more warm temperatures. We're talking about much above average, downright almost hot temperatures in places like Texas and Oklahoma, down into Louisiana, and it's going to feel abnormally warm even in the Northeast and the portions of the Southeast as well. But watch what happens here. We've got another one of these big troughs that's coming together, another big pocket of cool air forming in the west as we go into early next week. This is November 18th. Now, the reason why we're focused so much on this is because we don't have a lot in the near term to talk about. I'm just trying to give you a heads up of what we're seeing next week. But remember, this could change a lot because it's so far into the future. But this does come along with some more snow in the Cascades, some more significant snow maybe in the Rockies here on Monday, November 18th. I think we've got a real chance of seeing another significant snowstorm here in Denver and maybe even Albuquerque. And also Sunday night into Monday, there's a chance here that we see a severe weather outbreak in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. This is going to turn into a large storm system if it actually goes the way the GFS is saying here. That could bring significant snow into Nebraska, South Dakota, and even over towards Minneapolis as we go into Tuesday, November 19th. More continued potential severe weather will be possible on the southeastern side, maybe from St. Louis down to Shreveport, as the snow continues to pile on back here in Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. And of course, you can see it down there. Our maybe hurricane is really kind of prominent on the GFS here, but I wouldn't put too much stock in that. Remember, we're about 228 hours in the future right here. I would be very surprised if we actually saw this as a reality in the future, but certainly something to take note of. There's enough energy out there to support a hurricane in the Gulf right now, and that might be something that we're talking about as we go into Wednesday, November 20th. But I think the more likely thing is that we have some sort of rain and snowstorm back here in the central U.S. that we're going to be keeping an eye on. That is a much larger and more consistent signal at this point. And then that is going to bring in a major pattern change where we're actually going to get much cooler than average for a lot of the central and eastern United States as we go into the latter part of November, and we're going to get really warm in the west. So this is normal. We normally see these big pattern shifts where things change like this, but it's been so long, it's going to feel abnormal for us because we've been so warm here in the east for so long. So this is going to be a welcome change. It's going to feel like fall, and it's actually going to put us in the position where we can start seeing some consistent rainfall over here in the east as well. And when I'm talking about these temperature differences, I really mean it. First, we've got to get through another record-breaking warmth period. Okay, this week is going to be warm in the east. Okay, it's going to continue to be cool in the west. The same story we've been dealing with. We're going to have a huge heat wave type feature coming through as we go through the early part of next week. But look at this. You see that big trough, the big bowling ball trough is bringing down significant cold air into the Rockies and into the southern portion of the United States. We're talking about all of Texas, Kansas, and Oklahoma, potentially on Wednesday being much below average. And that cold air is going to spread across the rest of the central and eastern U.S. as we go towards Thanksgiving. And once again, this is probably not going to look exactly like this as we get this far into the future. It's going to change, but the overall pattern shift from warm to cool on the coasts is going to be there. I think that that's a shoe-in. I think that's definitely going to happen. The timing of it and all that stuff is up in the air right now, but I definitely think we are going to see a big push of cool air as we go towards the end of November, and I think it's actually going to last a while. But before we get there, we have to get through the continued warmth, man, well above average in Minneapolis, Chicago, all the way down towards Memphis this week. The next 6 to 10 days are going to be more of the same. It's going to be very warm out here. And then same thing for you guys in the west. It's going to continue to be wet and cold for the majority of our folks out here in the Rockies back towards the Cascades. And then just cooler than average in places like Southern California. Where the warm and cool air meet, though, as always, we're going to have a battleground where we are dealing with above average precipitation, especially right here in the heartland of the United States. I think that some of that's going to spread out into the Ohio Valley as well. So that's good news. But I think that the moisture is going to move much farther east once we get that pattern shift taking place. Here's how much rain various places could see over the next 7 days. We're looking at a hot spot here in Oklahoma and Missouri once again, potentially down here towards New Orleans as well, where we're going to have that flash flooding threat, especially tomorrow. But the vast majority of all of the moisture is going to be falling over here in the Cascades, down into the Sierra over the next couple of days. So right now, there's nothing significant to talk about in the near term other than that. And also, other than just the lack of rainfall, I guess, over here in the east, we're continuing to have not a lot of precipitation. I do think that's going to change whenever this pattern flip happens. But for right now, we're still in a drought. And I'm very shocked whenever I look at this map. The vast majority of the United States of America right now is at least abnormally dry. Almost half is in a drought. And some places are in an exceptional drought, a historic drought, like right here in Ohio and portions of West Virginia California. We're starting to get there in portions of New Jersey as well. We've got a big wildfire problem going on all up and down the Appalachian Mountains. So, the rain is going to be welcomed, but it's not coming anytime soon. Now, don't get me wrong. We're going to get a little bit more rain this week than we did last week, potentially, but this drought busting moisture is just not going to be there until the pattern flip happens. But yeah, even over here where we were just not too long ago devastated by historic flooding, we're already back in that abnormally dry standpoint here on the U.S. Drought Monitor, just because of how extreme the precipitation values have been. It's either been historically wet or just nothing, which is absolutely a crazy thing to have watched unfold here on the U.S. Weather Story. And that's all the weather I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Very, very low chance that I'm going to go live anytime soon. And in fact, unless there's a big change with our thunderstorm outlook for tomorrow or Wednesday, or unless there's a huge change with our tropical depression in the Caribbean, we likely won't even make a video tomorrow or the next day. So if you want to follow me for some rapid fire updates, the best place to do that is going to be over there on Facebook or Twitter, X. Ryan Hall, y'all, is my handle on everything. So make sure you go follow me. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you not until next week. But of course, if things hit the fan, we'll be right here for you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.